Just trying to get my screen set up here. Um, here we go. All right, welcome everyone. This is the Planning and Zoning Board meeting for January 29th, 2026. The time is approximately 6:31 p.m. and this is being held at the marina. If anyone would wish to speak on an agenda item, for first of all, I'd like to welcome everyone back for the new year. Happy New Year, board members.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
And Merry Christmas also, and everything. So thank you for being for being here and being able to celebrate the new year. Hopefully, we got a lot of good new things to come. All right. Again, if anyone wishes to speak on an agenda item, please complete the public comment card and give it to the Planning and Zoning Board staff prior to the board discussion and before the public comment section is announced. In no event will anyone be allowed to submit a comment card to speak on any agenda item after the title of the item is read or considered. The total time allotted for each member of the public to comment on each item is 3 minutes. Please be reminded that the Planning and Zoning Board is committed to civility and decorum by members of the public who attend this meeting. We're going to start off item number one with a moment of silence. And the board will lead with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, please, may we have a roll call?
Board Member Williams,
Here.
Board Member Stringer,
Present.
Board Member Burgess,
Here.
Vice Chair Fernandez,
Present.
Chair Wiley,
Present.
alternate board members, Board Member Brown, Board Member Marie Joseph, Marie Davis, Miss Lucy Joseph,
Present.
and also, Chair, for the record, we do have new legal counsel. His name is Mr. Glenn Tresivia.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right, do we have any, but on to word number two, acknowledgement of any board member absence notifications?
Yes, sir, Chair. We have Mr. Gallen that sent in written communications that he will not be in attendance tonight.
Acknowledgement of any board member vacant positions?
Yes, sir, Chair. We have a vacant position in District 2.
On to item number three, are there any additions or any deletions to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair.
On to number four, disclosure by any board members? Adoption of the agenda, please.
Chair, I motion to adopt the agenda as stated.
So do I.
We have a first and we have a second.
We have a first and a second?
I second that.
Okay. Are we ready for the vote, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Board Member Stringer?
Yes.
Board Member Williams?
Yes.
Board Member Burgess?
Yes.
Board Member Vice Chair Fernandez?
Yes.
Chair Wiley?
Yes.
Unanimous vote, Chair.
All right, on to number five, may we have approval of minutes, please?
Chair, we don't have any, Mr. Weathers, we do not have any minutes for today's approval. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
On to number six, unfinished business.
We have no unfinished business this evening.
All right, great. I would like, we have some distinguished guests inside that are here to visit us, and I would like them to come up and introduce themselves. They're here to take a look at the city and be able to observe the city commission. So, ma'am, would you like to please come up and introduce yourselves and let everyone know who you are? Everybody. Over here.
Remember, he's the teacher.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michaela.
Hello, my name is Abigail.
All right, let everyone know what school you go to
We go to Inlet Grove.
in Lake Grove, and what is your career? What is your desire for your career?
I'm in medical, and I want to become a dermatologist.
Yes,
I'm in medical and I also want to become a dermatologist.
that is awesome. Our future leaders right there.
Welcome. Welcome, Michaela and Abigail.
Thank you, young ladies. To number 7, I'll do it. New business.
We have no new business tonight, Mr. Chair.
All right, now on to number 8. Let's go and start our workshop items.
Thank you. This evening we have a workshop to do some board training. We have planned a series, so we want to do several of these workshops, so that's not too much at once. So tonight we have, we'll talk about the Sunshine Law, Robert's Rules of Order, and then we'll give a general overview of planning in Florida, and then planning in Riviera Beach and some of the main items that are in our codes that you will deal with on a regular basis at your meeting. And so we'll be starting with the Sunshine Law, and our attorney, Mr. Glenn Torsivia, will lead that for the board.
Good evening. How are all of you tonight?
Good evening.
Yes, I'm Glenn Torsivia, been an attorney here in Palm Beach County since 1981. I started when I was 6 years old, and had the pleasure of representing Riviera Beach on various matters. About 1992, since my friend Andy Graffenright was the city attorney. I think several of you maybe know Andrew, great man. Anyway, a lot of what I'm going to tell you tonight I learned and worked with Andy on. So start with the Sunshine Law, public records. What I try to do when I do these presentations, I gave you a lot of written material. You got about 45 pages. I'm not going to read 45 pages. You'd be bored, but it's there for you to read. If you have any questions, call me. That's what I'm here for. My job is to make sure if you have a question, you ask it even before the meeting. That way, when you walk in, you know what you're doing. And if you have any questions about it, let's deal with it up front. So what is the Sunshine Law? Before I even look at the slide, in a couple of sentences, what it really means is that none of you can talk to each other, can communicate with each other about the business that happens here outside of here. And when I say communicate, I mean any way in the world, text messages, Instagram, Facebook, stuff that I don't even know, but all these different ways of communicating. So chair, for example, can't lean over to a fellow board member and whisper outside of the meeting, or you go to lunch and you talk about something. You can't do that. Not if it's going to come here. You can sort of talk about Super Bowl that's coming up. You can talk about how your kids did it in Inlet Grove. You can see whether they're going to be a dermatologist or a lawyer or medicine, whatever they're going to do. But you can't talk about the business here outside of this meeting. So this first thing is just a quote from the statute, 286.011, and it says all meetings of any board or commission, that includes you, where any official acts are going to be taken are public meetings, and they're open to the public. And you see the public is always invited to your meetings. Your meetings are never in private. The public always has a right to come, and you have to give notice of that meeting. And then the clerk takes the minutes of the meeting, thank goodness. And her minutes are open to public inspection. So you approve the minutes, those minutes are open, the public can make a request to see those minutes, and they have a right to see it. Because at the end of the day, all of us are here to serve the public. The public pays the salaries, the public pays the rent on this building, the lights and everything else. So the public has a right to access the meetings where the business of the city is happening, including your business. And then here's about the minutes. This is the South Bay right here in Palm Beach County case. And there's no exception. You have to record them promptly and open them to public inspection. You'll see this little bottom thing, reasonable attorney's fees. That's what enforces this law, whether it's the Sunshine Law or the Public Records Law. If somebody has to sue the city because we didn't produce the records in time or we violated Sunshine Law, they're going to get their attorney's fees. They don't get damages. It's not like an injury case where you rear end somebody and you're going to get money for whiplash. No. It's about the attorney's fees, so it incentivizes attorneys to take these cases and make sure that the government is being honest and open. And so these are the big three. Notice has to be reasonable. Location has to be open and accessible to the public. I'll talk a little bit later, but I'll jump in now a little about restaurants. There used to be lunch meetings. You have a meeting in a restaurant. Well, yeah, a meeting and a restaurant is open to the public, but is it really accessible to the public? Because if you're going into a restaurant, don't you feel like maybe you need to buy something, buy a burger, get a soft drink, whatever? So that's not really accessible. So it's got to be someplace like this. And again, the minutes we talked about. What is a public meeting? So this is what I started talking about before. Any kind of meeting where you're talking about the business that's going to come in front of you, that becomes a public meeting. So formal and casual meetings, like I said, lunch, you're at the ball game, you're watching your kids play soccer or baseball or football or whatever. You can start talking about, next week's agenda, we're going to be talking about this item. What do you think about it? You've not committed a violation of the law. Actually, it's a funny kind of law. It's almost like getting married, right? Or dancing. It takes two to tango. It takes two to get married. It takes two to violate the Sunshine Law. So technically, if you were to say to her, what do you think about next week's meeting? How are you going to vote? Well, you proposed to her, but she hasn't accepted yet. So you're not married yet. And you haven't committed the violation yet. But once she says, well, I'm thinking this way, how about you? Now you both committed the crime. So don't put your wife to be in that situation and ask her what she's going to do. And so you want to avoid that. And again, like I said before, it's any way that you communicate, text, telephone conversations. You can't access third party. You can't say, hey, Glenn, could you talk to the board member and let me know what she's going to do? Now, I'm committed a crime too. And you'll see this word a lot too, the broadly construed, which means that if the court's looking at this case, the city's never going to get the benefit of the doubt. The citizen is always going to get the benefit of the doubt. And again, it talks about advisory boards such as you. So I'll skip some of these that don't really apply that much to you.
Can you go back? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I'm sorry, Chair. I have a question.
I agree. I was just going to say the same thing. Can you go back to the first slide? I know we have it, but want to make sure everyone else see it.
I do not know how to go back on slides. I'm not technological. I'll turn it over to Mr. Kirk.
That's okay.
Oh, the red button goes back. I thought I was going to lose it. Yes, question.
Chair, so I seen that it says applicable to elected and appointed bodies. So does that mean because we serve on the planning and zoning board, if we talk to an elected official, anything?
Good question. Very good question. No, you can talk to elected officials. You can't talk to people on this board.
Okay.
Now, again, the difficulty about talking to an elected official or anybody else is that person can't go ahead then and talk to another member on this board about how you're going to vote or what your thoughts are. But yes, you certainly have your First Amendment rights to speak to elected officials about a matter.
Okay. Chair, one follow-up.
I probably had one, too. Go ahead.
Then you mentioned about, let me get all the dumb questions out the way, but the newbie, you mentioned about like if we're in public settings, because many of us, we're all engaged in the community, some form of fashion. I know the appearance of could be. So how does that work?
See, I could have paid her to ask these questions. These are great questions. The appearance is something, again, that happens more with your commissioners, but it happens to you too. So again, you're at lunch and you're talking about whatever. You're talking about Linda Grove, you're talking about sports, you're talking about whatever you're talking about, but you're not talking about this. What's the person in the next table going to think? Oh, they're conspiring. I know these two. They're both on the board. They must be. If you're really talking about what's going to happen here, you got a boring life. So you're probably talking about other stuff. But that's why you have to be careful about the appearance of it. The appearance is not a violation, but you don't want someone coming up here and saying, well, I saw these two talking. I want to know what you were talking about. Well, that's none of their business. And if that ever happens, I think your answer is, I can tell you we weren't talking about anything that's happening here. What we were talking about was personal, had nothing to do with city business and the planning and zoning board. So it's strange because, in a community, you're friendly, you know each other. A lot of people know each other on this board, and you see each other at different places. And you don't want to chill your ability to be an active member of the community. That's why you're all here, because you're all active members of the community. But you just got to be mindful that there's sometimes people out there that if they see you together, they're going to think, oh, those two are going out. Well, you're just being friends, but somebody's going to assume, oh, you're going out or you're talking about this business. I keep picking on the two of you because you're on this side, so don't feel bad about it. I'll pick on Miss Davis. She's way down there.
Thank you.
Okay.
No, I mean, it's.
Not even. No.
I just had a question regarding public records requests. Should there be, in the case there's someone who asks for our minutes, is there a timeline as to when we need to provide those documents?
Yes, my favorite word in the law is reasonable. It's got to be in a reasonable time. Well, what's reasonable? Okay, if I have this piece of paper right now sitting on my desk and you come in and ask for it, well, it's probably reasonable if I just can hand it to you or run and make a copy of it, right? That not much long. But if you made a request for 5,000 pages of documents, reasonable might be 2 months. I've had a case one time where it took 3 months. Now, I would never recommend that. I try to have my clients do two things. And again, this is almost always the clerk. It's not going to be you. If someone makes a request to you, you need to get in touch with the clerk. But if you got a request or she gets the request, I usually tell people respond and acknowledge it. Okay, I received your public records request. I'm working on it. And then within a few days, a week or so, most public records requests you're responding to. You don't want it hanging out there. And again, depending how extensive it is, if it's 5,000 pages, that could take a long time. And one thing about public records, and I know we're not really on public records yet, but I'd rather do this, when you're interested in something. A public record is something that already exists. You don't have to create it. Someone can ask you a question like, well, I want you to tell me how much 2 + 2 is. No, you can ask me if I have a piece of paper that has the number 2 on it, and I'll give you that. And you can figure it out, but I don't have to come up with an answer. This isn't a question and answer. It's not Jeopardy. We're not going to get the right answer to the question, but you do have to give the document to them. Next slide. Yes, sir.
One more question. Thank you. Just a question. I just wanted to clarify, just so we all understand completely. Sunshine law violations between the planning and zoning board is forbidden, frowned upon. We can't talk.
Correct.
So it's the same rule for commissioners.
Absolutely. They can't talk to each other either.
But what is the difference between us having communication with the commissioner? What separates that? What's the fine line between that?
The separation is that you all are making a decision here together. The commissioners are not involved in your decision. You're not involved in their decision. You may make a recommendation to them sometimes, but each one of you are your own board, your own body. So you might have, some cities have historic resource board, some have a public art board, all those different boards, all just this, back to the family idea. You're a family, they're a family. You got to communicate. You can't communicate within the family, but one family can talk to another family. So you can talk to them about it.
All right, just one clarification, just in case I'm asked.
I love, yes, Ms. Davis.
Because there's so many committees in the city and some of us meet in other places, not necessarily right here. Are the notices all supposed to, wherever you're meeting, are they all supposed to be in one place so that the public can go to that place knowing that's sort of where all the meetings are listed and where they're going to be?
In the old days, different committees would have their meetings listed on the bulletin board at town hall or someplace like that. Nowadays, the bulletin board is the website, right? So most meetings are listed on the website. Advertised meetings are rare unless they have to be advertised. Like a lot of your meetings have to be advertised or some of the action you're taking. But mostly now it's through the internet, through websites. You can post it on the bulletin board, and that's it. You don't have to do anything other than that.
You don't have to put them all in the same place. So as an example, City Hall has this big box.
Well, you could say, for example, planning and zoning is meeting at the Marina Event Center. Public art is meeting at the old City Hall. Yeah, you have to say where it's going to be.
But there's no centralized locations? Like you're talking about, well, it could be on the internet, or it could be
I believe
on
the website, isn't on the website, isn't that really where the city's meetings are all posted on the website, I
Is
believe?
there something official?
They should be.
Yeah, they should all be posted on the city's website. That's your centralized place.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Trevor.
Yes.
Can Ms. Board Member Davis, can you pull your microphone closer to you? We can,
Okay, sorry about
yes,
that.
let you know, Ms. Davis.
Oh, Miss Davis, can you pull? Okay, thank you. Slippery slopes. With this cold weather we're having, I thought I'd better throw something in like this. I don't like the cold. And these I'm going to kind of just go over. These are some examples. I talked about this. Emails, text messages, that's a slippery slope. You know, you start going down that slope, you're texting, and they text back, and now you got a violation. Slippery slope 2, this really deals more, not so much with you, but committees. So you don't have any committees under you, but commissions have committees. This dealt with a college that had a committee. So those are not really applicable to you, but the same principles. They can't communicate outside of the sunshine. The sunshine law does not require there to be an agenda. Now, we all have agendas. You'll always have an agenda, but technically, what do you also have on the agenda? You have additions and deletions, right? Is that on this agenda too? So the theory, and actually, see that case at the bottom, Law and Information Services versus City of Riviera Beach, 1996? That was my case for the city. I was defending that case. Someone sued. May I digress and tell a war story? Okay. So years ago, the city.
Talk 3 minutes, please.
Yeah, 5 by 3 minutes. It'll be a quick story. And some of you may know some of these people. So the city commission was looking for a new city manager back in about probably 94, 95, if this case was 96. And they had gone through a process, they'd advertised, they had a list of, I think, 6 or 7 final candidates, and they had said to the public that we are going to interview these 7 candidates. We're going to interview 3 of them on Tuesday and 4 of them on Thursday, and we're going to make a decision next Monday. I'm making up the days, but that was kind of the idea. They interviewed 3, and then at their regular commission meeting, before they interviewed the next 3 or 4 people, there was a motion made. Now, the agenda had already been adopted, and the motion was made at midnight. These things always happen at midnight. I can tell you from experience, it always happens at midnight. Around midnight, the council member made a motion. Well, I believe that we have interviewed 3 people already, and I think so-and-so is the right person, and we should hire so-and-so. And I moved to amend the agenda, which was the smart move he did, amend the agenda to add to the agenda a discussion about the city manager. And so they did. They hired the city manager that night at midnight. And of course, there was a lawsuit filed that said, not only was it not on the agenda, you actively misled the public. You told the public that this was the process you were going to follow, and you didn't. And believe it or not, I won that case, because in that case stands for that proposition that additions and deletions can happen at any time. Once you're meeting, you as a public body meeting, the world is on notice that you're meeting, and you can always add anything to the agenda. And it doesn't say you have to add it at 7 o'clock, where the normal addition and deletions, you can add it late in the meeting because the public's on notice. Philosophically, I didn't like that answer. As a lawyer, I liked it because I won my case. But so do I advise you to ever do that? No. I'll always advise you to put it on an agenda. If you're going to have additions and deletions, do it early, because that's what happens when you do something at midnight. You wind up having a lawsuit over it, and you spend a lot of time and money on it. I mean, that person didn't get their attorney's fees. The city doesn't pay their attorney's fees, but we had to pay our attorney's fees. So that's a case that I'm glad I won, but I philosophically have a hard time with that. But I understand it. What the court said was that, what if a hurricane's coming? What if there's an emergency? You know, you can't tie the hands of a public body not to have additions and deletions. And that's why we all have additions and deletions, because something might come up. Thank you for indulging my war story. And after, if any of you wonder who that manager was, I'll tell you off the record, but I don't want to talk about him out here. He's a great, great, great friend. Luncheon meetings, we already talked about lunch. You don't want to do that where people are going to think you're talking about business here. Tape recording. If we're taking a tape of the meeting and someone makes a public records request for the tape is a public record. But is that tape the minutes? No. The minutes have to be written minutes. So, and another case with Riviera Beach where someone requested the tape, they got the tape, then they requested the minutes, and the clerk at that time said, no, I gave you the tape already. And the guy sued, and the guy was right. You have to have written minutes. And the written minutes can be short. They don't have to be verbatim minutes. Bobby said this, Susie said that, but they could say, the board considered whether to paint the floor gray. Motion made to paint the floor gray. Action minutes are what they're called. That's all that's required, just a short summary of what happened. And again, this doesn't say the type of notice, and this was the question before about what kind of notice is there. It's just got to say the time, place of the meeting. It's got to be prominently displayed. Again, in the old days with city halls, now it's on the website usually. Except in case of emergency, you want to give at least 3 days notice. Again, the public, the Attorney General's office will recommend 7 days. That's their official position. But there are lawsuits, again, including one that we had for the city, where the city posted at 4 p.m. on a Friday that they were going to have a meeting at 4 p.m. on Monday. And somebody sued, claiming that that wasn't enough notice. And the court decided that we were correct, that 72 hours notice was enough. So I always rely on that case. I say, yes, there's actually a case that says 72 hours is enough notice. Special meetings, or emergency meetings, again, the notice is always that word reasonable again. God forbid a hurricane's coming. You might have an emergency meeting on half-hour notice. That's you got to take account of the reality of the situation. But most of the time, you want 72 hours. The public has to have a reasonable opportunity to be heard. So that's why you always have public comment cards. People can make public comment at public meetings. Does not mean you have to engage in interaction. It's not a question and answer session. It's simply they have a right to make a comment. And again, there are some exceptions, but the idea is the public not only has a right to attend, but they have a right to be heard on an item. If you violate, what's the problem? It could be a criminal penalty. And there are state attorneys that will prosecute these crimes, and there are judges that will put people in jail for these crimes. And I'll show you a picture of one in a minute. You can get removed from office. You can have the civil lawsuits, which don't really impact you personally. That's going to impact the city. And then again, we talked about attorney's fees. And I love this little Latin at the end. Action taken in violation of the law is void ab initio. What the heck does that mean? It means that it's void as if it never happened. It's almost like Superman running around the world and when things went backwards. And, I don't know if any of you remember that movie, but I remember that movie. And that's what it's like. It's void as if it never happened. So this is 2 council members in Sebastian just a couple of years ago that went to jail for violating the Sunshine Law. I'm doing this presentation a few years ago from Port St. Lucie to a group called the Children's Services Council. And I show this slide. Now, the real little print at the bottom says, and Judge Michael Lynn sentenced them to prison. Well, who was on the Children's Service Council that day? Judge Michael Lynn. And he was friendly with everybody on the council. It was the superintendent of schools, the school board member, all these people. He goes, and I'm telling each one of you, if you violate the law, I might be your friend, but I will put you in jail. Just like that. He was not joking. And here was the proof that he did it. So you don't want to violate that law. I don't want to see anybody with the perp walk picture. This is just a local judge talking about how important it is to follow the Sunshine Law. I'm going to clip through this. This is like 3 pages of his opinion. And, he does say here, if you lie about the Sunshine Law violation, that's another crime. Mm-hmm. That's perjury. And I was, ooh, he's not kidding. He's a serious judge about this. Here's just another example. Sumner County Commissioner convicted of felony perjury, removed from office, served 75 days in jail. In his case, his conviction was reversed, but he already served the 75 days. So if you do commit a violation, you can cure it. What you want to do is at the next meeting, you bring it up, you discuss it again. It can't be a rubber stamp. You have to have a full and open debate and discussion. And I didn't know my Inlet Grove medical students would be here, but you can see we got the medical picture here because you can cure it. Don't ignore it. And that's it. Now, this is public records. I know I'm taking a little time, and I got to bet with Kurt who's going to be faster. I think I'm losing right now. So I'll run through this really quick because we already talked a little bit about public records law. all these documents that you have relating to this, the agendas, they're public records. You got to keep them. I always recommend that you just provide your documents to the clerk. That's her role, is to maintain them. Audio, agendas and meetings, emails, text messages, all these things become public records. It applies to you, but really this is more of a staff issue most of the time, because social media accounts are always an issue, right? If you're on a social media, does your social media become a public record? If you start talking about public business, if on your social media account you're talking about the planning and zoning board and something coming in front of you, you've now opened up your social media account to a public records request. Do you really want to do that? No. So try and avoid using social media to talk about anything to do with what might come in front of you as a board. It talks about drafts could be a public record. I always love this. A preliminary draft is not, but a real draft is. You tell me where that line is and I will give you a quarter. I don't know where that line is, but I just tell people, realize anything you do could be a public record. Personal records, you get a text message saying, honey, could you pick up milk on the way home? That's not a public record. Social media post about a non-city is not a public record. But if it's dealing with city business, it probably is. So be careful with that. And if you have a concern, don't create the record. Pick up the phone. Then you're not creating a public record. Not violating the Sunshine Law, but if you have a question to staff, for example, call, ask them. And if it's not a public record, then you can't, if someone makes a public records request, even if it's not, you can't dispose of it, again, back to the clerk for 30 days, just in case somebody files a lawsuit. Exempt public records, there's over 1,000 exemptions. Social security numbers are exempt, right? All kinds of personal information. The police officer's home address is exempt. Code enforcement. So there's a ton of exemptions. That's why if you ever have a question about a public record, call me, call the clerk, because there's so many exemptions. I get questions at least 2-3 times a week about, is this document exempt? Do I have to turn over this child's report? A lot of things with kids are exempt. Confidential is even stricter than exempt. If the document's exempt, you're allowed to release it. If it's confidential and you release it, you just committed a crime. So I get real serious when someone is talking about a confidential record. Confidential records, adoption records, birth certificates, reports of abuse, social security numbers, driver's license. These are things that are confidential that should not be produced. So if someone makes a public records request for my personnel file, the clerk has to go through that and redact out, black out every time my social security number is there, my date of birth is in there, anything like that, bank account numbers. That should not be public records. Unfortunately, nowadays with the internet, it seems like you can find out most everything about anybody anyway, but we shouldn't be part of that. This is the question earlier, when do you respond in reasonable time? Cities can actually charge, and most of them have a policy that if it's more than 30 minutes, it's going to take more than 30 minutes because that's an extensive request. You then send the requester an email that says, okay, it's going to take 10 hours, and the salary and benefits of that person is $20 an hour. So that's going to be $200 or $2,000, whatever the math is. And you can require them to give it a deposit. A lot of cities require 50% down before they'll even start working on it then. Because the idea is the public shouldn't be paying for your public records request. If it's extensive, you should pay. And why should the rest of the public pay for doing 20 hours worth of research for you? But it can't be exorbitant. It's got to be the real time. If I'm a $10 an hour or $20 an hour employee, you got to pay for that time. We talked about this, redacting exempt information, confidential information. This is a charging for request, 15 cents a page. The attorney's fees we talked about. Every city has to have on their website who the custodian is. There's a note that says who the custodian is, so people know who to make a request to. I talked about this. You have to you don't need to respond to a request for information, only a record. These are just helpful links if you have questions. I don't know, Kurt, do faster than that.
Are these questions free of charge or?
Any questions though, really? I mean, I'm not really rushing it. I just don't want to bore you.
You're on the record, free of charge. You're on.
All right. I'll turn it over to Ms. Thompson at this point.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Those are great questions. Thank you. And I sincerely appreciate all the service that you do. I know that you're all volunteers. You spend your time here. I see you here doing hard work, studying the material. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have some more too.
Okay, for the record, I'm Kurt Thompson, Principal Planner, current planning in the Planning and Zoning and Building Department. And my part of this is to present to you topics of review will be history of planning, the planning official, 3 comprehensive plan and land development regulations, and lastly, rezoning, site plan review, special exceptions / PUDs, okay? So first of all, what is planning and where did it begin? Planning, generally speaking, everybody, is a process where a city or community guides or accommodates growth or development or decide on how that's done. Planning is, in a practical sense, started long ago before there was a name for it. Colonial settlers planned both in how they separated different uses and when they began to navigate land grants and establish farms. Planning encourages the separation of uses for the health, safety, and general welfare of the public. How did planning begin in Florida? Well, the legal framework of planning in the state of Florida started in the 1970s with the Florida State Comprehensive Act of 72, the Environmental Land and Water Management Act of 1972, and then the Local Government Comprehensive Planning Act in 1975. Particularly the Local Government Act in 1975 required local governments to adopt and implement comprehensive plans. Okay, that, if I may add, that's one of the reasons. Well, I was living out in Washington State at the time in Seattle and doing planning, and there was a big push for comprehensive planning, and one of those I heard about was here in Florida, and so then I began to pay more attention to Florida and became more and more interested, and here I am. Changes to planning in Florida in the 1980s. In the 1980s, Florida determined that planning in Florida was not effective, and the legislature did a major overhaul of both the legislative framework and the support system for it. The new system includes Chapter 163, Part 2, and Chapter 186. Most of you will notice with Chapter 163 in particular is where the section provides the minimum requirements for long-range planning, such as the elements within a comprehensive plan, certain elements like future land use, infrastructure, the intergovernmental relationship, and the use of the waterways. Those were 4 of at least 5 or 6 mandatory elements that had to be in all comprehensive plans. And if you remember right, one of the most recent ones that was done was involve local, I think, God, I can't think of the name of it, but there's been a number of, at least 5 or so, that's been implemented. Changes to the plan in Florida in the 1980s. And in the 1980s, Florida determined that planning was not effective, and the legislature did a major overhaul of both the legislative framework and the support system for it. That new system included Chapter 163 and Chapter 186. 186 involves state and regional planning, requires planning at all levels of government to be integrated. One of the things I did was when I first came here, working for the city of West Palm Beach, and then I went to work for the South Florida Water Management District, which involved the planning of water resources. And that was the creation of Chapter 373, which is the Water Resources Development Act that was created under state law. So now we look at why do we plan? Well, planning considers the present conditions and resources of a community and provides the roadmap to the future. It ensures that future development will occur in the way and in the location that the community wants it to, i.e., this is where all of you come into play here. It allows for economic development while protecting the overall vision that the community has for itself. In short, you have to plan for the future and for the future community that you want. Planning helps balance or consider various needs as well as the availability of resources and infrastructure. Planning considers a community's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats as a part of the analysis. And then lastly, planning protects the public health, safety, and welfare. That last one is the one thing I learned through grad school and through my practice of doing this profession. We're always into protecting the public health, safety, and welfare. Much like the police officer sitting back there in the back, she's designed to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. How do we plan? Well, we plan through comprehensive planning, local review of projects, and special studies or areas. Comprehensive planning is where we want to have a vision, and that's the comp plan, and what we need to do to achieve that vision, which is the implementation, which is the zoning code. This is an iterative process where you do it over and over again. So a comprehensive plan is your vision, and the zoning code implements the comprehensive plan. The zoning code is a creature of the comp plan. Local reviews of projects, we implement the comp plan with every local development permit. Staff and the board and the council consider the project both as far as its scope and if it is consistent with the code of ordinances, which includes the zoning regulations. You heard zoning regulations referred to as land development code, zoning code, or land development code. Or in some instances, you hear people use zoning land development code. It's all the same. It's the zoning code where you regulate the activities that go on within a city, town, or county. That analysis is front and center in every staff report that you review for projects that come before you. As you know, we all submit staff reports, myself, Scott Evans, and Mr. Sermons. We present the staff report and we present all the different elements and how it complies or does not comply with the zoning code. There are special studies or area studies, like you saw Sonny Simon here with our comprehensive planning, long-range planning. She talked about the comp plan. She even talked about neighborhood plans. Well, neighborhood plans will fall into that area of special studies or area plans. And what is a planning official? The American Planning Association defines planning officials as any appointed or elected official involved in planning decisions for the betterment of a community, region, state, or country. In this case, all of you are a planning official because you are appointed by the city council. This job is one of public trust, and it's one of the meaningful ways you can serve your community and shape its future. Thank you for your service. In the city of Riviera Beach, the Planning and Zoning Board is appointed by the city council and serves in an advisory capacity to the city council by making recommendations on projects and applications for consideration by the council. In this case, the planning board has 5 regular members and 5 alternate members. The first 5 are you, starting to my left and going all the way over to Ms. Burgess. You 5 are the regular members, and the 4 here are the alternate members. But you all get to participate and have your input. The Planning and Zoning Board reviews land use changes such as maps and text changes, zoning changes, plats, site plans, and abandonment. Now, with plats, there's been a recent state law that was approved that now plats are reviewed administratively by staff. You no longer have seen me, myself, or Scott or Mr. Sermons bring a plat before you, because now state law has said that plats need to be done administratively to help move the process along a little more efficiently. At least that was the perception by the state government, signed by the governor, and here we are. But I wanted to include that because other jurisdictions, other states look at plats, and it's a part of the public process. Well, and it was here until state government decided otherwise.
Chair, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So when you say that staff approves it, like, are they being trained or they have experience to do that? Or because that was this new state law, they just...
Right. Well, state law determined that the expertise of the local government, of staff.
Meaning you guys, you're saying staff or other people in the organization?
Well, it's not just the planning staff. You have engineers, you have the engineer department, you have the public works, you have police, you have fire. All of those technically trained individuals review plats. But primarily, more than anything, ma'am, the decision was made by state government to be more efficient, and part of that is to approve plats. I think Scott wants to add to that.
Yeah, I would just add that the state statutes provides very specific regulations for the plats.
Yeah.
And we don't have the expertise to do that. So we, the review is, the city engineer does have some review, but we also hire an independent third party to review that plat for compliance with the state statutes. So before it's approved, it goes through that third party independent review.
Okay, so it's not just
right.
Employee A can say, we can move forward with it. It's you guys reaching out to a third party engineer that gives you the recommendations, which they align with the statutes. Then you guys get that, and then it goes to approval process, not necessarily through council or even our recommendations, but in-house.
Yes, that's how Riviera Beach.
That third party would be a licensed and certified surveying company or surveyor who then, through the use of Chapter 177 in the Florida statute, reviews plats and makes sure they comply with state law, state statute. And then the plat then goes through an evolutionary review process. The ultimate ends of it being approved and recorded at the county office with the clerk of circuit court.
Thank you.
Amendments to the comprehensive plan in section 27-34 of the city code, which talks about planning. It consists of section 163.3177 Florida statute. This is the law where the city's comprehensive plan provides the principles, standards, and strategies for the orderly and balanced growth for the city. The planning board, all of you, is designated as the local planning agency responsible for reviewing proposed updates to the comprehensive plan. So in this instance, as Sonny Simon brought to all of you, you are the LPA or the local planning agency. So before anything gets to the city council, it comes to this body first. As the LPA, the board also reviews changes to the future land use map, which establishes the desired land use, zoning types and density, and for the different areas of the city. The future land use map is basically the comprehensive plan in a geographical format. That's the way I always looked at it. So when you look at the land use map, you're looking at the comp plan, and the geographical format has identified by the comp plan. And it's the same way with the zoning code. When you look at the zoning map, you're looking at the zoning code in a geographical format, in this case, according to the way the city is laid out. And you have the text and then you have the map. And so the map provides you with the visual, the text gives you the details. Okay, fourth and final is this part has 4 different parts. The rezonings. Chapter 31 of the zoning code, chapter 31 of the code of ordinances, which is the zoning code, establishes zoning districts, the allowed uses within each district, and standards for the allowed uses. Not all uses are allowed within a particular zoning district. Some uses are prohibited because due to the factor of nuisance, air, light, wind, things like that. When reviewing an application for rezoning, we determined whether or not the zoning change would be consistent with the comprehensive plan, and site plans are applicable only if they're being approved concurrently with the rezoning. So, and then you have the text amendment. So everything done in a zoning code comes back to the comprehensive plan, and you've seen staff reports. Those of you who've been on the board long enough have seen staff reports created by myself, Scott Evans, or Mr. Summers, or really staff reports are a combination of all of us. I may be the lead on writing the staff report, but it doesn't come out in the final analysis. It has input by all the planning staff, particularly Mr. Evans and Mr. Summers. Because I always call them the management of the planning department, because they are the lead managers. So by the planning department management makes the final call. Site plan reviews, you have section 31-57, which talks about purposes of site plans. This is where this is where I have spent most of my career, is in site plan review. And I don't want to sound arrogant or anything like that, but I've spent 40 plus years doing this business, and a lot of it involved the site plan review and text and zoning code review. I go back to 1980 to now, so you all can do your math on that one. Special exception standards for granting special exceptions, like PUDs. All PUDs, each jurisdiction has their own particular idiosyncrasies or requirements. In this city, PUDs are part of, by definition, special exceptions. And so you've seen us bring staff reports before you, and you have not just the PUD standards, but you also have the standards for special exception. And that's because here in this city, PUD by definition is a special exception. Okay, so then these 5 or so standards are all a part of the special exception. So if you see us having a 30, 35 page or more staff report, it's because we're trying to make sure all those standards are met, and then we show you the standard and show you how a project meets it, or in some instances, how it does not meet it. And here's a continuation. There are standards for granting the special exception. One of the more important things is screening and buffering, signage, the yard and open spaces. And I feel the questions from all of you about things like screening, buffering, landscaping, and in certain instances, a lot of instances, open space. And then, of course, there's that one instance when we have MIHOP, the Minority Employment and Housing Opportunity Plan, where we always try to make sure that we have standards of conditional approval that recognize the uniqueness of Riviera Beach, and the MIHOP is one of those things.
And if I could just expand on that, if you don't mind. So when a lot of projects that come before this board for recommendations, the site plans the zoning code for each different district lists all of the uses that are permitted. So if it's a permitted use, they have to follow the setbacks, the various regulations, the landscaping, to comply. But then some of the uses are listed as special exception, as Kurt has just gone over. So when a project comes before you, that's a site plan, if it's a particular use that's listed as a special exception, what that means is it's a use that's allowed, but the city has determined that it needs extra scrutiny or review. So the special exception section, what you see on the screen, highlights what are the areas that we're concerned about in this particular use, because if it's designed in a certain way, we think it won't impact the properties that are adjacent. But if it's but it's important because perhaps it's got some sort of potential nuisance. So when you're looking at a site plan that's also a special exception, it's because these special regulations, we wanted to make sure that the applicant paid attention to them when they designed it. So it's just an extra layer to ensure that a project is going to fit into the neighborhood or community.
Right, and one of the things that you all have noticed is that we have conditions of approval, and those conditions of approval are used to minimize, if not totally, try to look at eliminating any adverse impact that a proposed use or site plan would have. So we establish what we believe are reasonable conditions. And in some instances, I'm sure you've seen where you've added a condition or two, and we take that condition, we put it as a part of the staff report, so that when it goes to the city council, now that those one or two extra conditions that you suggest become a part of the approval. And with that, board members, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chair, and members, concludes the staff presentation. Yes, Ms. Davis.
Yes. So when you all are sort of go back to the beginning of planning in general. So the city, 100 years ago, the city was laid out to appear in a certain way. Now we progressed to where we are. So when you're updating comprehensive plans and zoning and rezoning in various neighborhoods, do you actually look at the new rezoning that you're proposing and how it physically impacts the neighborhood, either through visuals or not flat, but like a 3D presentation to yourselves? Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. Maybe try to answer your question. I believe in the zoning code, in the staff report, I think you've noticed where there are like 8 standards that talk about text amendment, rezoning, or site plan. Text amendment or rezoning or text amendment or rezoning. Those 8 standards are used to, if you will, filter out the use to see how well that use meets the intent of the intent and purpose of the comprehensive plan. So that's why we always have those 8 standards within a staff report. Like, for instance, in a use coming up, in a project that's coming up next month, there are approximately those 8 standards you will see in terms of, because they're asking for a rezoning from a downtown core to another district. And I don't want to get into the details because I have to be careful with that. But basically, there's the standard, and then you'll see where the staff believes how that project meets that standard. You see what I'm getting at?
No.
You don't?
All
Okay.
right, so maybe I didn't ask the question
You
correctly.
speak up a little louder.
Okay, so when you're looking, or when all of you get behind your desk and you're looking to see what your rezoning is, do you take like the building height now, plus what it's going to be, and show how it looks in the neighborhood, that's what I mean.
Those are renderings. You're
Okay.
talking about a rendering.
Are they
Yes,
3D or are
ma'am.
they flat? That's what
They
because-
give us, an applicant gives us copies of a rendering, and a lot of the members here have already seen it. Ms. Joe said this too, where we give renderings. You know, that old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So we create renderings that the applicant submits, we show you, so you can get an idea of the scale, mass, height of the building to see if it's how compatible or incompatible how the use is.
Well,
And if I could just add, so the regulations in our requirements for a project submittal are for elevations. Elevations are the flat cross-section view of whatever they're proposing to build. However, we always request, and it's really to the applicant's benefit, so they always provide them renderings, that's the picture that's sort of on an angle, and you can see the 3D. You can often see one or two sides of the building. You can see perhaps what's in the background. So the elevations are the flat, and then we also get the request the renderings, which is sort of the 3D. Now, we don't have a model that you can sort of go into through software and look around, but we do require those 3D pictures that sort of show how the building that or the property that they're developing would look.
So this is just specifically, what you're saying is specific to the project itself, not necessarily how it impacts or how it looks. If you had a 20-story building next to a bunch of single-family homes, so there's nothing there in the applicant's renderings that reflect how it impacts that neighborhood, the view or the.
I would say for
You know what
most
I'm
large
saying?
scale projects, their renderings include the surrounding properties. If it's a single family house, if it's a small apartment building, and staff always, of course, looks at that. But it's
Right.
there's not a specific code section related to that.
Right. We show in the rendering how property lines are imaginary, so you can't see a property line, but you can see the distance from one building to the other. And we oftentimes will ask an applicant, or we'll do it as a staff, to tell you approximately how far the height, the distance from one proposed building to an existing building, or the distance between the use and another use. Or one of the things is called a shadow study, where high-rise buildings project a shadow, and we sometimes will ask an applicant, or an applicant will provide that information in a rendering, and we will show that to you so you can get an idea of how it will impact the residential area or the nearby area. How am I doing? Am I getting better at it?
Better. No, I'm just concerned about, we have so many projects in Riviera Beach. It's hard to know, especially on Broadway, how they're going to impact how Broadway looks now and how it's going to look then. Or even, I know everybody has traffic studies done, but it's almost like from a 10,000-foot view, how it looks now, and then with an overlay or whatever, how much is going to impact Riviera Beach and Riviera Beach and its residents.
When you look at one of those renderings, oftentimes we will get a series of renderings that will show how the shadow of a building would be at a certain time of the day, like from 9 a.m. to noon to 3 to 5 p.m. Okay, that gives you some idea if a building is going to overwhelm the surrounding area because of its height, its scale, and its mass. And we look at that. I've looked at that quite a few times in my experience and in my career. There's a saying in planning of nuisance uses. Will a use create noise? Will it create foul odor? Will it create a glare? Will it create certain negative uses to the community that would be a detriment? And we look at all those things, and that's where when you see a staff report, it's not just one person. Like I said, it's a combination of all the planners that on staff. We go through it and work it through, and in some instances, we ask the applicant to provide additional information to the point to where we have a good feel for it, and then we try to convey that to all of you in the staff report. And then with that, it's just not a bunch of words, but we give you renderings, pictures, site plan, landscape plans, things like that.
So when you're looking at it, or maybe I'm incorrect, but we're talking about project by project. So I have to use Broadway as an example because that's barely all I know about it. So when you're looking at a project and there are going to be 5 buildings on Broadway, they're going to be large and smaller. Do you look at the entire area to see?
Yes.
Okay.
And
that's-
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Actually, right now, we're working on a new study because this in the downtown area of the city, primarily the CRA area, you have the ability to apply for a planned unit development that can allow a project, theoretically, up to 25 stories. So we're working on a study right now with our consultant, who is Kotler Herring, that will eventually come before you for your recommendations and review. And that study looks at, well, the premise is that it assumes that we don't want 25 stories. It's not appropriate for every single property in the entire downtown. So that is trying to have that big picture look to say, what heights do we have with existing buildings right now? And what heights do we want to limit the development in the whole CRA, because there's some areas that aren't appropriate for 25 stories. So we are specifically working on a new overlay that will consider all of the properties in a comprehensive manner, and that will probably come before this board in April or May.
So when you do that, does that also encompass congestion and traffic and things like that?
That the congestion and traffic is looked at separately.
But would you look at it as a project at a time, or like this new study that you're referring to?
The new study is just for height.
Okay, okay, thanks.
Chair,
Yes.
as you've been on this board for years and you hear the same thing from everyone who's been here, we do not want a Miami. We do not want a Fort Lauderdale. We do not want what West Palm Beach is turning out to be. We don't want 25-story buildings next to each other, because you're going to have a major congestion. And if I recall correctly, I do not believe a traffic study is needed for CRA or downtown core. Am I correct, Mr. Evans?
You are required to do a traffic study, but
Go ahead.
there's less requirements to meet. And that's not just in Riviera Beach, it's
No, I understand
in
that.
all of Palm Beach County. The ability, if you have residential, for example, which is east of I-95, then there's a bunch of exemptions that, regardless of traffic, that do allow that density to go in. So that's
Correct. And those exemptions, although we mentioned traffic studies here and all that, those exemptions play a major key in the approval. The problem I personally have is thinking outside the box and making sure that we do not have another Miami, another Fort Lauderdale, another West Palm here in Riviera Beach. We can't even practically move on Broadway now as it is. So what I'm trying to get at, and I know I mentioned it at plenty of meetings, when we look at approvals that are coming in, and we have a developer that's coming in, and I know I've discussed this before with staff. I know you discussed it with them saying, why don't we do this instead of this? I would love a 50-story building for a developer, more money, but it's not feasible for that area. We did it on Broadway on that one project. You cannot put 25-story buildings and behind you got the single-family residences. That's not going to work. So we're going to work with that developer, but it doesn't mean we can work with every developer. What I'm trying to get at is, let's just look at everything that's been approved and think about the community. Look at our comp plan, which I believe the old one and the new one will include open space. Well, if you clutter up the entire area with 25-story buildings, I don't know what open space. And I know we had a developer in there. Oh, we're bringing in bikes. Really? You're going to get people to ride bikes on Broadway to get to work in West Palm, Port St. Lucie? Good luck. So the bottom line is just look at an overall project, not individual, but as an overall impact to our city and our citizens, because we have to live here. And developers come, money, they leave. And the rest is up to us. So that's my own humble thought on this. I appreciate the time, Mr. Chair.
That's what you call regional planning. See, and we do that. And I have been involved in not just the urban planning of the immediate city or area, but then look at the regional impact of whatever is going on, like in West Palm or in Lake Park or even Palm Beach Gardens, and what impact that has on the whole region.
Right, we tried regional planning in Miami-Dade. Where'd that lead us to? We tried regional planning in Broward. My God, I'm already in Palm Beach County. I can't keep moving north. So I've seen the detriment of development. Miami, surrounding communities, Broward, surrounding communities, now West Palm. So if we have regional planning, somebody in West Palm must have missed it, because they're building some monstrosities in some old neighborhoods and taking over some older condos to rebuild into more monstrosities. I don't know whether people are I don't know if you're going to be able to drive into West Palm anymore. That's my own humble opinion.
We keep trying. We keep trying.
You keep trying a little more on the help us citizens thing. But appreciate it, Mrs. Thompson. You guys do a great job. Thank you, Chair.
And then I have one more question.
Chair,
Yes.
real
So,
quick.
I think what we're trying to say, and I am at least in my inarticulate way, is we as residents and taxpayers want to have a quality life, and for those in the future, over quantity. That's it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Chair, I need to be excused.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we just did have one other item that would take about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Mr. Torsivi is just going to quickly go over Robert's Rules of Order, which are the general rules in running a meeting. And we just wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity just to get a refresher on those rules and for the new members.
Absolutely.
I think I'll be brief on this. Robert's rules, the point of Robert's rules is to make sure that, every member has equal rights to speak and propose motions and vote during the meetings. The chairperson is supposed to enforce the rules and ensure the meetings proceed smoothly and fairly. I often say the chairperson is like the traffic cop. You're directing traffic. You're making sure that people stop when the light is red and go when it's green and give them the yellow when they need the yellow. They do a great job of that, by the way. There are different kinds of motions you can make. The typical motions that you're going to hear are motions to approve staff recommendation, motions to deny, motion to adjourn. Everybody loves that motion. It's a favorite motion. If someone is made a motion, usually what happens is the chair will recognize that person. The motion is then made and seconded by someone. And then there's debate, and then you take a vote on the motion. So it's kind of an orderly process. And usually, and again, I've observed you all do this too very well. The chair will let everybody have their say. Everybody has a chance to talk and present their position, and then you vote on it. The key is always what you do. You listen to the other side. Sometimes people change each other's minds. You hear something that you didn't think about or you didn't hear. You be polite, and then you vote. And that's pretty much it. You just it's, to me, it's basic civility, and it's although it's harder to run a meeting than it looks. People think, oh, it's easy to run a meeting. Nope, you got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different human beings up there. We're all different. We all have different things that kind of tickle our fancy or get us going. So it's all a matter of just being polite to each other and listening and let the chair do what he's supposed to do, which is run the meeting. That's it.
We have a peaceful
You do.
board.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Pleasure to work for.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, can we move on to number 9, where we have public comments? Are there any public comment cards?
We have no comment cards, Mr. Chair.
All right, let's go on to general discussion. Any staff updates?
We have no updates, Mr. Chair.
All right, on to correspondence by the board.
Did we get a pay raise this year?
I think that's what.
Tripling the pay from 0 to 0, but we very much appreciate
was a
for
zero.
volunteering to work on this board. It takes a lot of hours to review all those materials. And so we very much appreciate it.
And we appreciate you because, oh my God, what's he gonna ask next? Oh my Lord, here he goes again. We appreciate it and your gifts, water, no candies tonight, but it's okay. It's okay.
Tonight, what's
It's all right,
candy
it's coming in with the new budget year.
Next meeting.
Appreciate everything you guys do, really do. I'm Glenn, sir, welcome aboard.
Thank you. It's always good to be back here.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. So we got a 0% increase?
We got a 0% increase this year.
0% increase, okay. Copy.
So on that note,
Also, on to see the planning and zoning board, I was looking, I didn't have a date. There's no specific date yet for the next planning and zoning board meeting.
there's no date on here.
The next board meeting will be February 12th.
February 12th.
February what, sir?
February the 12th.
February 12th.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then I'll go on to number 11. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn, 7:47 PM. Do we have a second, sir?
Second.
All agreed, we're out of here.